The research article I chose to look at is Facilitating and Rewarding Creativity During New Product Development by Burrows, Dahl, Morrow, Chattopadhyay, and Korn. It was published in July of 2011 in the Journal of Marketing. The purpose of the study was to examine the relationship between rewards and creativity training and creative output in employees. Creativity continues to be a construct that is not well understood in marketing firms, and this results in a lot of variance in the way that firms approach these issues. Businesses are dying for research on how to structure incentives and to motivate their employees to be more creative. They want to know how to develop these tools to facilitate creativity. This study does just that. So first, let's define creativity. As this picture demonstrates, creativity encourages one to free your mind, to think outside the box, and to look at things in a whole different way. Creativity is commonly defined as the production of something that is both original and useful. It is still effective in accomplishing the original purpose of the product, but it either makes the product more aesthetically pleasing, or it is more efficient, or more advanced than the previous version. Creativity encourages one to break with tradition and to look at and eventually do things in a whole different way. So why is creativity so important? As this quote demonstrates, in a recent IBM poll of 1,500 CEOs, creativity even edged out integrity as the most important leadership quality for business success. Creativity is an important component in new product development. It is essential to organizational innovation, effectiveness, and survival. Companies are looking for strategies to combat the increasingly competitive global market and to keep up with technological advancements, as demonstrated by the iPhone. As such, they are demanding more creative thinking from their employees, or the generation of new ideas. To stay on the cutting edge, employees need to invent new ways to develop and produce goods, services, and information. So, first, Burrows et al. Did a qualitative study looking at 20 marketing and new product development firms with annual revenues ranging from $25 million to $79 billion across North America, Europe, and Asia. The goal of the study was just to better understand managers' strategies for obtaining and rewarding creative thought. So they asked them 3 questions in an interview format, and these were the results. As you can see, they're pretty inconsistent. At the top, 7 firms outsource their creative production. It's the rationale, it's difficult, and there are people over time who build a great amount of expertise in the innovation area. So, in their minds, it's best to just let other people deal with creativity. In contrast, only 2 firms out of 20 offer formal creativity training. 5 just do informal creativity training, such as brainstorming. And 6 offer no creativity training whatsoever. Their rationale, you can't teach creativity. How firms reward creativity. There's even more inconsistency among how firms reward it. But the thing that is consistent is how they pretty much all of them do it. 5 firms do not reward creativity because it is built into the culture and it's expected. They don't train it necessarily, but it is an expected job description. So, as past research shows, though, rewards without training, not really good for long-term intrinsic motivation. Rewards on research has long shown that external rewards can undermine the creative process by diminishing intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is defined as activity engagement for the sake of the activity itself. In this diagram, intrinsic motivation is represented by the heart, external rewards is represented by the bag of money. But because creativity training is mentally taxing and often requires sustained effort, intrinsic motivation is considered critical to this process. So doing anything that can diminish intrinsic motivation will therefore diminish creativity. Why is this so? The provision of the reward is believed to cause an interpretive shift in the person's reasons for engaging in the activity. The effort goes from doing the activity just because they enjoy it to focusing on trade for compensation. Essentially, the provision of the reward causes the task to be defined more narrowly and simply as means to an extrinsic end, rather than as an opportunity for exploration and cognitive play. Again, because creativity usually requires such sustained effort and mental engagement, this loss of intrinsic motivation is believed to more than offset whatever benefits the external rewards could provide. So, to combat this effect, research shows that training can be a moderating variable between external rewards, and creativity, because it has been shown that if rewards and creativity are provided in conjunction, then the reward is interpreted as informational rather than constraining. And it contributes to increasing competency and greater feelings of intrinsic motivation. Creativity training can actually make a substantial difference even after a single session. This single session can enhance creative training capabilities and outcomes. As such, Burroughs et al. Argue that creativity training is an essential component for breaking this negative interaction between external rewards, intrinsic motivation, and creativity. So, Burroughs et al. Did 2 studies looking at these effects, and this is what they hypothesized. The first one, training could reverse the otherwise negative or neutralizing influence of rewards on creativity in a new product development task by bolstering intrinsic motivation. How is this done? They hypothesize that training provides some people with cognitive tools to actually work smarter and boost feelings of competency during the creativity task. They further hypothesized that rewards in training would become mutually reinforcing. In contrast, their second hypothesis, for those who do not receive training, a reward is likely to be interpreted as a type of bribe used to induce someone to do something that she may otherwise be reluctant to do, hindering creative effort. So this kind of goes in along with all the historical research by DC and Ryan that says that external rewards undermine intrinsic motivation. So, the first study. The participants were 122 undergraduate engineering students, and the research design was a 2x2 between subjects design, which created 4 conditions. Number 1, reward plus training. 2, no reward, training. 3, reward plus no training. And 4, no reward, no training for the control group. The task, they had to design a car jack for an elderly person. If they were receiving an extrinsic reward, they were either had to come in first, second, or third place, so there was incentive behind that. First place, $250, second place, $100, third place, $50. The judges of creativity were 2 elderly outside judges. They were blind to the study. If they received training, in the first study they received a type of training called creativity idea production training. What is that? Creative idea production training, this is the actual quote that they received, the participants received in the study if they did fall into one of the conditions that received training. The idea of CIPT is to emphasize the use of idea generation and elaboration in response to concrete and realistic problems and situations. CIPT encourages people to visualize how one specific person might experience a problem, and this helps them kind of generate new ways that the problem can be solved. So, this is what the participants said. So, seeing in your mind a product user being involved in interacting with a proposed product design can facilitate the development of design solutions. So, the training went a little bit more in depth, but that just gives you an idea of what it was. The results. The results show that only the training manipulation significantly predicted the extent to which the participants visualized the consumer during the design task. So training did affect the design process. It was not just something that they had to go through and it didn't make a difference. It did actually affect the design process. Results showed a main effect of rewards, of external rewards or extrinsic rewards on creativity, as you can see. But they further indicated that the positive influence of extrinsic rewards is contingent on whether the participants also had creativity training. So, this condition, extrinsic reward, training. Additionally, the reward without training condition caused creativity to decrease. So, training plus reward, significantly more creative than the other 3 conditions. However, results don't really show the intrinsic motivation factor in all of this. So, Burroughs et al. Used study 3 to investigate the effects of intrinsic motivation. The third study, or study 2 in this presentation, participations were 110 engineering students, same research design, same task, same extrinsic rewards offered, but this time they used a different imagery training and they were asked to complete a 5-item self-measure of intrinsic motivation after completing the task. So this was just looking at task engagement and task absorption. The CIT training, in this study they used Catina's divergent symbolic production technique, which basically is a little bit more complicated than what I'm outlining here, but they broke it down to 5 steps. Imagine there's a box in the corner of the room. Close your eyes and imagine what is in the box. Write down as many objects as you can think of and then group them based on similarities. Close your eyes again and imagine one group of the objects coming to life and playing together. They were then asked to write a story about their interaction. The idea behind CIT is less specific than creative idea production training, but it encourages free association with the goal of enhanced lateral thinking or making connections between seemingly unrelated objects. It tends to be more imaginative. The object is to stimulate imaginative thinking and push conceptual boundaries, helping participants break free of fixation. So, The results from the second study. Results show that the training rewards condition produced the highest levels of intrinsic motivation, and the reward untrained condition actually showed a decrease in intrinsic motivation. So this isn't represented by the graph here, but that's what they showed. This contradicts the current literature that rewards always undermine intrinsic motivation. Actually, not true. They can actually increase intrinsic motivation if they're paired with training. As you can see in the diagram, the training and reward condition produced significantly higher creative design than the other three conditions. So this was a significant effect. Furthermore, there was no difference between the two creativity training programs. Both of them were equally effective. So you can either use CIT or CIPT to enhance creativity in your employees. So what does this all mean for businesses? Number one, they have to change the way they think about things. Creativity is in fact 94% process and system, and it's only 6% employee. Most firms get it exactly backwards. The entirety of these firms' creative strategy entails hiring the right people and just simply expecting them that they'll be creative. Like that one executive said, he believes that you can't teach creativity. In fact, you can. So how do they motivate their employees to be more creative? Number one, offer formal employee creativity training. Number two, offer rewards for creative success only if they've undergone training. You can still offer rewards. Rewards are good. They actually make training even more effective, but you have to make sure they've undergone that training first. Impressions and limitations. So I thought it was interesting that the extrinsic reward in this case was a prize that would actually encourage the competition. So there was a first place, a second place, and a third place. There really isn't that type of setup in businesses. There isn't a first place. There's a first place. Usually the person that does the best job is the only one that's rewarded. This isn't really realistic in the business setting. So I think it'd be interesting to do a study that looked at more realistic, more applicable structure in the future. Furthermore, creativity training was limited, which is, they only had one brief session and that was it. I thought that was actually a good thing because it demonstrated, creativity training still demonstrated a significant effect. I can only imagine how legitimate creativity training would affect creative output. Overall, I thought the research was pretty well done, but as with any research study, practical implications can only be tested in the real world. I need to know how this works in reality. I think it'd be really interesting to do a case study with a business where you came in and you implemented this creativity training. All the employees had to go through that, and then they were given a creative task that they had to do, and then they were rewarded for it. So just kind of seeing how it actually works in the real world, I think would be really